G'day guys. Let me just crack this on and crack it open. Focus me. G'day guys. So today, unfortunately we don't have Christian here, so we can't do the PowerShell 101. So what we're going to be doing today, as you guys can see in the descriptions, I've got a upcoming meetup that I need to write some code for a demo. What we're going to do is we're going to be demoing a Google multi-factor authentication module. So I'm going to write a bit of a PowerShell login web form using JavaScript client-side and REST API endpoints. Following that, we're going to have some logic apps, basically transpose that into Azure Automation, and then from Automation, we're going to trigger a hybrid runbook worker onto my local VM, run some PowerShell on that, have a fake database, and then push all that content back as a JSON content. So in this instance, we're just going to be it'll be a bit of a series that I'll be cracking through. So yeah, it'll be pretty cool. Hope you guys enjoy it. So first things first, I just actually need to make sure that people can hear me, because if they can't, well then that sucks. Give me 2 secs. Make sure people can hear me. Yep, people can hear me. Great. All right. So first things first, what we need to do is I kind of need to work out exactly how I'm going to do this. I do have another piece of code that does do this. I'm not starting from scratch. But at the same time, though, I kind of at least take you guys along for the journey, because I do think that's pretty cool as well. So one of the really cool things about Azure Automation is that you have what we call hybrid runbook workers. Hybrid runbook workers basically allow you to have a runbook, an OMS enrolled machine that's basically on your on-prem infrastructure. When it's on-prem, basically you can enroll it in OMS and it can basically collect your logs and things like that. It also has the automation component of it as well. So basically, automation provides desired state configuration. I think it does updates. Those two I haven't really worked with, but also does also runbooks, and hooks into the runbook as a hybrid runbook worker. So obviously with Azure Automation, you can trigger runbooks, you can run PowerShell, you can run Python, you can run graphical workflows, things like that. They're fairly easy and fairly standard. But one of the cool things is that you can actually target the hybrid runbook worker. And basically the way automation works is it has an outbound HTTPS connection from the local endpoint on your on-prem infrastructure. Maintains that HTTPS connection. It'll go to automation, pull down the runbook. If there's a runbook that needs to be pulled down, runs the runbook, executes it, and then pulls it all the way back up. And it sends the results back. So what we're going to do here is basically we're going to use logic apps to trigger the automation runbook as a REST API endpoint, so that the JavaScript can hit. Following that, it will go to automation. Automation will go to the hybrid runbook worker, and from the runbook worker, it will go down to the machine, execute, and then bring those changes back. So we are in essence building a full lifecycle of different collaboration of Azure technologies, but in this instance, we're going to give that a go. Rancher, sorry, no, I haven't. Sorry, no. If yeah, tell me what it is. Or send me a link. I can definitely go check it out. So what we're going to do is, I think first things first, we might write some PowerShell. So I think first thing with PowerShell I love to do is I'm just going to build out a bit of a folder structure. So as you can see here, we've got our, I've just got my demos. This is our BrizPug repo. Website demo, PowerShell, and we're going to now create our hybrid runbook worker. I'm just going to call some runbooks. Hybrid workers, cool. All right. Helper. I'm just going to call this helper roles because that's probably a better way. Hybrid helper roles. So one of the really cool things with PowerShell when you're running on hybrid runbook work is even though it runs down on the machine there, you can basically .source items into it. So realistically, we can just have a whole bunch of helpers. We don't actually have to have all that written into the script itself. If we need to reference multiple functions over and over again, a bit like a PowerShell module, we can just .source them in. It's not really a module because I don't particularly have time to make modules. So I'm just gonna throw it out there and see how we go. So I think the first thing we need to do is kind of think about what we're going to do in terms of JSON. So this is a good question. I'm kind of humming and hawing about it. So I think I need to work out my schema for my user accounts. It's not going to be anything super crazy, but I just thought we'd give it a go. So user accounts. I'm just going to create a quick demo user.json file. So I'm thinking something like this. We're just going to hard code it. I'm not really that interested. I'm not going to write anything super crazy. So we're not having any sort of enumeration of anything like that. We're just going to use a JSON file for a user account. I'm just going to it's only a demo, so we're just going to do that. So let's go some user. So we're just going to let's say this username. Let's just call it some random user. Breaking every rule in the book right now, which is basically clear text passwords, but for the sake of this demo, I don't particularly care. What we could do here is we could have we could have a secret stored in a secure string in Azure, and then basically that would copy down, and then basically we could use convert from. We can use convert to and from secure string. The password will be stored as a secure string with a custom key. That key we can just store in Azure, so to protect it. But I can't be bothered, to be honest. I'm just going to call it 123 password. I'm only not writing a full-fledged solution here. I'm only writing something that we just need to do. Token secret, and we're going to need an MFA secret. So I've got to go find the module now. I'll go do that in a sec. So there's a module I stumbled across in the PowerShell news, PowerShell.org, which basically allows you to create a Google MFA QR code. The QR code basically has its the get and the set factor. So you can basically set up a QR code. You generate a secret token key. Using that token key, it'll generate a QR code, and then from that, basically you can query what you need. You can basically query it, get the PIN. So then basically you have your PIN, you have the input PIN, and then you can validate the two. So we can do that in a sec, but I'm just kind of let's just keep smashing this out. So I'd like to probably keep everything case sensitive because keep the cases the same. So sensitive. How do I spell sensitive? This is like really my sensitive. I now have to Google how to spell sensitive because this is basically every sensitive. Sensitive skin products, that's probably the good one to do. MFA sensitive key. So basically it's a secret key. Actually, I could have just called it secret. Let's just call it secret. That's probably something better. Okay, so that's going to be my thing. Let's just have some cool data in here because we need some cool data. So obviously to prove the point that we're actually returning something. So let's just write data. Let's just make the MF the secret key. That's the secret key. Super secure, but yeah. G'day Sale9. Thank you for jumping in the channel. Yeah, we'll see how this is going to be a first. So I'm going to be trying to get the stream going for you guys. So basically, we've got a whole bunch of cool things I want to kind of do with PowerShell. I'm obviously working on different projects at work, and at the same time, I'm kind of also wanting to get you guys to see some really cool different ways of doing things. At the same time, I'm also going to be thinking of trying to do hackathons as that with VS Code Live. So we'll basically set up a I'll have a Discord server. You guys jump in the Discord server. We'll have you guys jump in the live share. And we'll basically write some code to do some various tasks. I'm hoping that the code basically we're going to do random things. So one of the things that I did a fair while ago, and I want to kind of retouch it, was I wrote a Battlefield 4 aimbot, pixel aimbot, just as a proof of concept in PowerShell. I do think it's really good to revisit it. Obviously, I'm not going to use it in a multiplayer game or anything like that. It's not really, again, the terms and conditions, but for the sake of obviously a learning experience, it's really good. And also from that, we can take that code, we're going to take it to somewhere else, and we're actually going to use it to make some what do you say? We're going to use it to make some we're going to make some weather tracking with it. So basically, we're going to look at radar images, and we use pixel analysis, a bit of math, and we're going to actually start tracking storm cells and things like that. So it's taking ridiculous code for a game and chucking it for something else. So yeah, let's keep cracking on. So we've got some cool stuff going on, so might as well keep going. So some cool data. So let's just put an object in here. We'll just call it a name, first name. First name is Mr. I'll just call it Barry. Last name is White. Why not? White. So that's going to be it. I'm hoping that it's good. No speaking English. I don't get. Sorry, I don't fully understand. Sorry. Yeah. All right. So what we need to do now is we're going to load that object up. So I'm just going to write a rudimentary runbook. So what we might do is, let's just call it auth.ps1. I'm not going to write anything over the top at the moment. We do need some parameters and things like that, so I might just copy those in. But for the point in time, we might as well work out our logic, what we need to do. So one of the things I like to do in PowerShell, every person's different with PowerShell. For me, I am one of the biggest comment Nazis out in the world. Half my code might be full of comments and paragraphs explaining exactly how the code works, and then you got one line of code. Where versus other people I've seen that just don't comment their work, and you kind of go, okay, we're going to try and backtrack. So I've always kind of learned from the experience of that. One of the things I do, I don't know if you guys do it or not, but it's just something I do personally, is that I kind of try and break my comments down into headers. So like if I have a 3 hash, that's usually, I define that as a H1. If I've got a 2, that's like a H2, and then obviously a 3, just a single, is just the defining of, I just say that's a random piece of thing, and it helps me break down my code. It makes it a little bit more readable. In this instance, I'm not going to write this fully featured. I'm just kind of going to start working out the logic, hopefully get the nuts and bolts, and we can start going from there. So what do I need to start with? Probably load the user profile. So I need to load the user profile. The user profile in. So what we might do is I'm going to need a script path. So the demo user JSON file, that's going to be on the hybrid runbook worker, so we're actually going to need to know where that is. So what we can do is we can use get automation variable. I need to fix this up, but I'm just kind of mulling it over. I actually just realized you guys can't actually see what I'm writing, so I'm going to quickly focus it like that. So that makes it a bit better. Sorry guys, first time streaming. Don't hate me. So obviously get automation variable, we're going to get that going. Now we're going to probably get some other bits and pieces happening. So we need to load the profile in. What we probably need to do is we're going to probably need to validate. I don't really validate it. I'm just going to write a bit more of the ad hoc. So what I might do. So I'm just going to write some basic param blocks for the time being. I'll tidy this up. Actually, no, I might as well write out my full param block. So let me just grab my template. Always got template lying around somewhere. I'm just going to template my code up. Rumble. If in doubt, template it out. That's usually the rule. So look at that. Username, password, MFA, PIN. That's pretty much all we need. They're all. We'll make the mandatory parameter. We'll make them all mandatory so that we don't have any issues. MFA, PIN. We'll just camel case it. So we need to load the file in. So all we can do is we can just do a get content. So we just go use it. User object. We can just go get content. Helps if I can spell literal path. Just go script user path. Yeah, I probably should add that there just for the sake of testing. So one of the things I always found is, especially with test path, I've had it happen a couple of times on production systems where it's thrown a terminating error on the actual process of testing path. So generally speaking, I just put a silently continue because at the end of the day, though, if I can catch the error, but realistically, you'd be trying catching literally everything, or you'd be putting traps. But traps is Traps is not recommended by Microsoft anymore. We shouldn't be using traps. That's like a PowerShell 1 thing. So we really should be try catching. So basically, I'm just going to test the path, make sure it exists. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to write this way because I'm only writing some demo code. I'm not writing anything full blown. I'm just going to use a return. If someone actually can tell me the exact difference, the technical difference between write host and return, that would be excellent, because it is one of the things I'm planning to do is actually decompile PowerShell core and go and have a look at what's the difference between the two. Now there is a slight difference. I found that using sub-expressions requires a write host where return doesn't work within sub-expressions. At the same time, though, I'm kind of thinking, at the end of the day, it'd be nice to actually put that one to bed. So that'll be something I'm kind of hoping that would be great. So what I'm going to do here is just do a return. We're just going to return back to the caller. Back to the caller, and then we're just going to say, because we're basically responding with JSON, and what the logic app is just going to pass JSON through. It's not going to do any formatting. So the logic app's going to be really basic, which is good, like from that perspective. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to go return. Let's just bracket it for the sake of making sure that things are not going to break. And then I'll just actually I don't really need to specify depth. So I'll make sure that works. Otherwise, I can actually just specify a table on the other side here. I might even just do that just as an import object. Make it a bit cleaner. Well, that's how it sense. Realistically, whether you pass it as a pipe or whether you pass it as an import object, I don't know what would be technically quicker, because technically speaking, it's pretty much the same thing anyway. You basically declared your hash table and then you just passed it over. So I'll just do that. Yep, same thing. So we've returned back to the caller. And we're just going to load the file. Let's load file in. We'll just load the. That's not English. That's English. Load the user profile. Look at that. Perfect. Okay, so use it, and we're just going to convert from JSON. Now, if I was actually writing this for production, like in a production sense, I would convert from JSON into a try catch. And then if I had those things, those items, I would then be validating the objects because you don't know if the user object is actually intact or not. So if it has any sort of malformatting or anything like that, we're not going to get caught out. That's probably the really cool thing there. I think, yeah, let's keep cracking on. So from that, we're going to basically got our user object. We're going to assume. So if you're going to test your objects, I did write this really cool function. It's called test object property. Basically what you do is you just pass your object, pass your property. Really all it does, it just looks at the two different types of objects. So you've got PowerShell objects, or PS objects, and then you have your hash tables. And what it does is it looks at, for example, a hash table looks at the key values, and with PowerShell objects, we're just doing a get member. So in this instance, it's all hash tables. So I'm just going to grab that and chuck it in. And actually, we actually do need to add a helper. So let's just go test object property PS1 like so. I'm just going to grab the function because I am not writing things from scratch. I'll be here from all day. All day. Where did I put it? Here it is. Oh, it's just called test property. So as you see, even though I called it test object property, it's actually just should be called test object property or test property. It doesn't really matter. So all it does is you can see here, it just iterates through each of the properties, looks at the object if it's null. So you can actually pass a null object. So even if you don't know if the object exists or not, you can just chuck the object in there. That's really cool because there's a lot of times you just don't know. And I don't particularly want to have to validate each object or object within an object within an object. And then have to go, okay, the parent one's null, but I don't really, to be honest, I don't really care about that. If it's null, it's null. I don't care. So I just want to know if the property exists. And so if it is null, it obviously doesn't exist. It's a Boolean value, so it returns true or false. Obviously, the default result is true. So in this instance, we're just going to obviously return false. So when we're actually processing a hash table, you can use the is condition, which basically, rather than actually looking at the type, you can just go, is it type hash table, which is really easy. It looks way cleaner as well. I like that. That's the thing I love about it. As you can see, I've got a lot of English there, but yeah, I'll obviously fix that up. So basically once it's iterated through each of the obviously in this instance it's key values for in a hash table, it basically validates does the property exist, does it not? Well, and this is one of the reasons why I actually want to talk to you guys. This is really important actually, and I actually think this is actually probably a good thing to do because in an instance where you're evaluating, and I've touched this on my channel a couple of times, and it will catch you out. So if you have a value equals false, and it only applies to Boolean values, so you don't have to really worry about it much. But if you have, for example, people generally, and this is how I used to test it, so I'm not on this is just my lessons learned. I'm not burning any bridges. I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. So people generally would, let's just create an object quickly. Let's just go. I just can't be bothered. So we'll just go val. Let's just say we've got object and dot property, P-R-O-P-E-R-T-Y. So is equal to. People generally do this, or they do this to test whether properties exist. Equals false. It's not a good idea to test the property based on that, because if you look at it, if you actually think about it, how PowerShell evaluates Boolean operations are really, really the exception to it, but they're still quite important, is the fact that Boolean values are either true or false. We're not talking whether they're null or true or false, so that's basically more C# kind of stuff. It's just either a true or false state. And because they're either in a true or false state, they will evaluate to one of these two items. So, for example, let's say you actually have, let's say for whatever reason you have a property, the object doesn't exist in that property. So you got your object, you got your property down here. The object doesn't exist. If the object doesn't exist, you basically, this value is going to be when you evaluate this condition will be false. But the thing is, the value could be false as well if this object exists and the property is actually set to false. So you kind of got to be a bit careful there. That's why I use an actual get member, because I'm looking at the membership and the properties within that to ensure that that's the case. Because if you don't do that, you're basically kind of in a bit of a tight spot where you basically get caught out. So I've been caught out a few times on that. And actually, it's funny though, because I was reading code a couple of years ago that I wrote, and I'm like, oh man, yeah, I've done this. Okay, I've got to go through and fix this up. And it's really, that's one of those things there. If it's a Boolean value, you're evaluating to be false. If it's a Boolean value, it's going to either be true or false. If the object doesn't exist and it's true, and you're looking at a property that's either true or false, well, it's going to be true or false either way. But that means there's two conditions, or it's actually, sorry, there's three conditions that can be met. So yeah, so really, really important. That's just something that I generally, I've learned along the way. So it doesn't come up, but when it does, it's just yeah, makes your life so much of it's such a pain to debug, because you're looking at it and you're like, that looks like it looks all right, and then you're going, well, hang on a second, no, it's not. So all right, so anyway, enough of my rambling. So let's just do it anyway. Let's just write it somewhat, with some fault tolerance. So I'll just write a try catch. So what I'm going to do here is just do this, and then I'm just going to return. I can write a function just to save, I could write like fail message or stop script or something like that. Realistically, I just can't be bothered. This is just a demo script. If I'm writing something a bit more fully featured, then yeah, I would definitely be looking at that. But in this instance, we're just kind of meandering about in PowerShell, and we're just trying to get this code. I'm trying to get this code somewhat quickly written. I don't think we're going to get finished today, but that's okay, because I'm sorry, I just got a random message. I get random random message. So basically, yeah, I just totally lost my train of thought. I think, yeah, what I was saying was just basically we'll just do try catches, and then I'm not going to write a fully featured just because I'll be here for hours and I want to get at least this part written for you guys, and maybe then like we'll go through in the next, probably on the weekend actually. I've got other things to do, but I really want to, on the weekend, maybe we go through and we'll get the automation side and logic apps, and we'll configure that. And then for the final part is we'll write some PowerShell, we'll write some JavaScript, and we'll go from that side. So we'll basically have this full featured system talking to each other, leveraging the beautiful Azure stack. And we will be loving life, because nothing is awesomer when then you basically can use PowerShell as a web server. So let's keep cracking on. So we've got our user object. One of the beauties about PowerShell is you can actually declare inside the try block. It's basically you can actually obviously pull the object outside of that. So I've obviously got an error there. I'm going to just grab the error message. I think it's error message. I think it's error message. We're going to probably have to debug that. I don't think that property is correct, but we'll debug that. So obviously we've loaded our profile. We might as well test. We'll do it anyway, so we can test our objects. Test the user objects. So what we're going to do here is we've got our user object, and all I can do is I can just do something like this. I might be able to. Oh no, I shouldn't put it in a case. Oh, should I put it in a case statement? Because case statements are definitely a better way to do this. Realistically, I could probably just upgrade test object property and then be able to pass. Oh, look at that! Past Michael was thinking of future Michael. I can pass multiple properties. That's awesome. Okay, I totally forgot about that. So I can actually just pass a string array of properties. So I don't even have to. Do multi-line. I thought I had to do a multi-line, and I was thinking, oh god, I don't want to have to do a multi-line. That's like the worst. Also need to dot source some bits and pieces in. So dot source my helper in some. I'm just going to put something here. Some random path. I need to come back and fix that up, but that's fine. So what I can do here, whoops, page up. What I can do here is we can basically put our properties. Properties. So my properties, so if we go have a quick squiz back at my demo user here, super secure passwords, I know. Don't rag me out because that's really secure. So what I'm going to do is just paste that there. I'm just going to do this. I'm not gonna test the subdata. I'm not gonna test these this object here. I'm just gonna test if the object exists. Oh yeah. Oh, that might fail because it's technically declared as an object. So that might be a bug there I need to review. So I've obviously tested my object, so I can just chuck that inside an if statement. We can just basically say something along the lines of, user validation failed along or something like that. Something that a usual user doesn't understand, but developers and systems administrators know. There is one type of error. Sorry, I have to go on a rant. There is one type of error that kind of drives me nuts, and I mean, it was actually it's kind of going on a story back in the day where we had I was working with Adobe. It was Adobe. What version was it? Oh man, Adobe 6, and it was this error that we got. It was this ticket we came in the help desk, and it was like unexpected. Oh no, it was an unexpected error. It was like unknown error, and we're looking at that, and we're just like, okay, so where do we start? Like, from a troubleshooting perspective, we have an unknown error. Great. So, all right, do the usual, check event logs, try and check logs, things like that. And it's like unknown error, and I'm thinking, well, how do you reproduce that kind of issue? Okay, get them to reproduce the issue. Oh, okay, it's an unknown error. So the only thing you could really do that situation is send a stack trace, send a report to ticket to Adobe saying, hey, I don't know what this error is, and I don't know how to fix it. So, and then they don't know how to fix it. So it's always they're the best kinds of errors. So if you want to troll someone, I definitely think just put unknown error and just do it for everything, or don't even put errors. Just say, yep, you're done, go home. That's a really good error. So as well, because then it gives you an excuse to go home. So let's just go user validation failed, like so. So user validation failed. So it's obviously returned to the caller. In this instance, it'll be the logic app. You'll see what I mean when we go ahead and set that up. Okay, so now we've validated our objects. We can actually start doing some tests on it. So the first thing we need to do is actually you can validate the user. What would you say? User credentials. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go. We need to get the pin. Oh, I need to go find that module. So the module I was actually talking about, I'm going to quickly go fire up a browser and I'll show you what I mean. It's this bloke here. What's his name? What's his name? I have to go find it now. Excellent module. It's only like 2 commandlets. G'day, Rana. GitHub. Jeez, I have to go have a look at it for it now. I came across it in PowerShell org. I was doing it the other day and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So if I just go article, in case you missed it, Google Authenticator and PowerShell. Here, this is an article I read about this by this gentleman here. It talks about how to use the Google Authenticator in PowerShell. So what I'm going to do is find his actual GitHub page. He had it in here. Here it is. So I can actually go have a look at this guy's GitHub page. It's actually really cool. I was actually really pumped. So you have basically, we have our two. It's just a PSM file, so it's nothing special. And all it is just two functions you got there. So you got new Google Authenticator secrets. So we generate a secret code. We give it a name and an issuer. It'll basically come back with a secret. That's the secret that we've issued. It'll give us a URI to basically get the QR code. We scan that with our phone, and then with our phone, basically we can actually put that in our app, and then obviously we have MFA. Now, once we've got that, basically, and this is the really cool part, is we can actually get it. So what we do is we just provide the secret. So in this instance there, you've got our secret here. So we just get the Google Authenticator PIN secret, and then basically from that, we can actually say, well, you know, and we'll go and sorry, we get our secret, and then we'll basically get the PIN, and then obviously we can then match our two pins together. So yeah, it's pretty basic, but it's really cool. So I'm just going to paste that in because it's easier. So I'm just going to create a, what should we just call it? Let's just call it Google Authenticator. Oh no, yeah, it is just Google Authenticator. I'm not going to make it a PSM file because it's easier just to dot source it in at this point in time. We've got old mate there. So kudos to what's human equivalent. Yeah, actually I really like it. It might be small, but it's really effective. So yeah, guys, check it out. Definitely on the BrizPug, I'm going to be demoing this code anyway. So we're going to be running the pin. We're going to be basically using the phone and doing those kinds of things. So yeah, I hope it goes all right. So let's keep cracking on. So now we've got our, I'm going to dot source all this in a sec. We're going to need to get the pin. So what we can do here is we can go back to our auth and we can just get our pin. So what we need to do is get our secret. Is it secret? Yeah, it's string secret. It's not really, yeah, and then you just got your OTP time window. That's pretty easy. So secret, and then we're just going to go user object, then we're going to go MFA secret key. So that'll basically, because the key is stored on the object, it'll pull back the pin. We now have our pin. So we can obviously make this super complicated. So we can make this as complicated or as basic as we want. It's not, it doesn't really matter. But we just, from this perspective, I'm just going to go pin, username, password, and does the use, and we'll also invalidate if the username doesn't exist as well. So obviously there's my 3 key criteria. I do have another project where it's using similar tech where it actually has a full suite of features. So using session tokens, user tokens, it's got user account lockout, it's got session token protection, so you can't brute force session token. It'll also regenerate user tokens and session tokens if it's been brute forced. So there's a lot of extra stuff into that, but for this demo we're just going to do this. So Google Authenticator pin, we've got our pin now. I'm just going to call it MFA pin, MFS pin, haha. That's a brain, that's a memory, muscle memory there. I used to work for Mercy Family Services for 4 years, and that's what that is. So first things first, we need to validate. We've got our pin. Let's validate MFA. Second thing we're going to do is validate. First thing we're going to do is validate if the user exists. I'm going to go to the user exists first, then the MFA, and then the credentials, because I don't want to go the other way. MFA and credentials you can swap. The only reason why I don't want to I want to have MFA before credentials is because if you were attacking something and basically you got back, your MFA is incorrect, then basically you are implying that the password's correct. The password's correct, but the MFA isn't. It's easier to have the MFA beforehand because if the MFA fails, well then don't even try to authenticate. So I feel like it's a little bit more secure in terms of adding it. You're not revealing any extra information that you don't need to. So what we're going to do here is we're going to validate if the user exists. So the easiest way to do that is if we've got we just go username. So if username is equal to let's just say it's not equal to it's hard coded, so realistically you would have something else, but in this instance it's just hard coded. So we've got our user object. It's not equal to user object dot username. One thing I learned, I keep learning over and over again, is JavaScript is case sensitive, and it drives me absolutely bonkers because I'm used to using, obviously coming from PowerShell, which, case sensitive variables and case sensitive, case sensitive and everything. And yes, C# the same, but it just drives me bonkers because I'm sitting there, I'm like, why is this not working? And I realized, oh wait, I used an uppercase add and the lowercase add, and now uppercase add thinks it's jQuery and the lowercase is what I've been trying to do. So yeah, that's my life. So obviously we just validated the user exists. If it doesn't exist, we're just going to return to the caller. So I'm just going to grab this. I can't be bothered typing it out. Put object error, user validation fail. I'm just going to say MFA, incorrect MFA. Something like that. Okay, so we got our, that's pretty cool. So I'm just going to do that because that's a H2. Load the user profile as a H2. So if I'm jumping around, I'm generally kind of like thinking on the fly. Brain's thinking about 1,000 different things. So obviously now validated user credentials, we can validate validate user credentials, we can validate user exists, validate the, no, that's completely incorrect. It's not validating the MFA. It's validating the, something like that, I'm thinking. Now we can validate the MFA, so what we can do, I don't really even need to store the pin, to be honest. Yeah, I don't really even need to store. I'm just going to wrap it in an if statement. So I'm just going to do this. If there's any sort of string formatting that's needed, yeah, then we'll do that. So we'll just go MFA pin. It's a pin, so it doesn't. I don't need to worry about being case sensitive. Username's case insensitive, so that's not the end of the world. So now I'm just going to return that. Now we can validate the password. Rancher. I'm going to definitely have to go check out Rancher because it's always good to learn new things. And I think if Rancher can definitely help me out with a bit more, that would be good. So now we just validate password. So we just go user object dot. I think it's password. It's passwords. Oh mate, because you need more than one password. So do that. And this is where we use a case, we're using a case sensitive matching because obviously password should be case sensitive. So password, let's just say it's not case sensitive. I generally like from a programming perspective, if you're working from the premise of if you're working from the premise of if statement fail out, if statement fail out. So PowerShell is inherently the script is inherently true. I generally follow that path. So if I'm writing in this instance, I wouldn't swap right now and say, okay, this is true and this is false. The reason why I don't do that is just because for me, like readability is all about is really important, especially in code. So when I'm reading code, and I've kind of got a bit of an understanding, especially when you're looking at code for the first time, and I've got a bit of an understanding of what's happening with that code, and he's going, okay, it's naturally evaluating it true. Oh, wait, it's not here. It just kind of, it's a bit like aliases. You don't use aliases when you're actually writing scripting itself. You can use aliases in the when you're, when you're bashing out in the terminal, but when you're actually writing code itself, it's you wouldn't. So, and I think it's like for me, it's the same thing. I'd write the script to be inherently true or inherently false, and then follow those principles. Now that's not going to work all the time, but that's just something that occasionally I might do. So, food for thought. When writing code, guys say otherwise. Like, what do you guys do? Because it's always, for me, it's always interesting to find out how people lay out their code, and in terms of do they follow an inherently true, do they follow inherently false, or do they just YOLO it, and then it's just whatever. So yeah, guys, throw me your stories, because they're always really interesting and they're always good to talk about. So so what I'm going to do is make this inherently false. So case equivalent, so it's not equal, like so, and then we're just going to say it's false. So I'm just going to grab that one, grab that, put that there, and then since everything has passed this, since everything else has evaluated to be false, forgive my English, this must be true. Now, obviously, I'm going to do a little bit more error checking and things like that. In my other project I've got going is I have a massive user object. It's full of data, and I mean full of data. It's basically a giant JSON collection of various objects. What I actually do is, before I send anything back, as a precaution, I actually will go ahead and remove properties that just the user doesn't need to have. So those can be things like sending password back, sending anything that basically the user doesn't need. And it's not that they don't need to see it, it's just they don't need it. So yes, password security issues, things like that, but in this instance I'm just like, well, I don't really care, to be honest. I'm just going to dump it all back because I don't really need to. Like, for the sake of actually this, we're just going to for this demo, we're just going to do that. So what we're going to do is convert to JSON, input object, there we go, success. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to pass the user object. So that entire user object, passwords, the lot, it's all going back. So this entire item will be sent back as a JSON object, as a JSON string, back to the logic app. So we've got that going for us. So yeah, I'm just kind of humming and hawing a bit at the moment. Humming and hawing. Yep. Okay, we're just going to return back. We don't really need anything else. I'm not going to. So that's pretty much it. Now, another thing I love to do, especially within code, is, and that's another thing I'm going to be working on soon, is we're going to be working on a project to rewrite the PS logging module. And we're going to be writing it with some CM trace logging. I worked with a former colleague named Chris Mill, who actually wrote a function which was that previous place I worked, which basically what it did was it logged. You would you would write items, your string items, to this logging function, and it would log it in the format of CMTrace or config manager trace manager, the logging type. And like 100%, that logging is just amazing. I love it. I actually think it's one of the greatest things, and I think like having start transcript, I've seen start transcript, I've seen, even good logging in static notepad documents. But when you're logging in CMTrace, or another thing I want to do is push the logging in analytics. But when you're logging in CMTrace and you're troubleshooting in CMTrace, it's, oh my gosh, it just makes me so happy because I can drill down to a stack trace or some sort of issue so quickly. And I have to admit, it's a brilliant thing, and it was actually it's something that I do think that module can definitely have, because it adds so much functionality. Like if you guys haven't used CMTrace, it's a bit of a weird tool, but I definitely recommend you guys go and have a look at it. It's basically part of the config manager toolkit, but I just love it because it color codes things I have. I can look at I can have multiple processes writing to it, so I can have a look at what I can filter by processor ID. I can filter by components. It's got tons of good stuff in there. Can filter on anything. And the best thing about this function, which he wrote, was it had auto rollover. So you would have a 5 meg limit, or you could have whatever limit. 5 meg is usually the better limit. And then after 5 meg, the file would roll over to an LO underscore, and then it'll create a new file. And then when it rolled over again, it'll just delete the old one. So you basically had a 10 meg log file that was always 10 meg. It was never something that you'd have to be worried about, oh, my log files are filling up my disks, things like that. Those are the things that I love about, especially about the tools. It was just so good. Now, there was the thing that I do think that there's limitations within CMTrace, which do affect it, which are things like multiple processes. There is a bug where if you use add content to write to a file with many processes concurrently, it actually returns a stream was unreadable error. So from what I could extrapolate, the file was opened, the process crashed, and the lock remained intact, and then basically no other process could log to it. So in those instances, you just use a .NET method. I think it was like a file.io system.io.file, and then you just append. I think it's just append it, and it's basically just you write your line. Make sure you put an environmental new line on the end, so type environment new line, and then basically just write your line, and then you're done. In case of a try catch, exponential backoffs, those kinds of things, so that you're not losing data. That's really good. So we got our code here. Looks pretty cool. I wouldn't say it's the best, but for the sake of making things a little bit easier, we can do that. I'm just going to grab some bits and pieces. So what we're going to do is I'm going to call this auth. I'll just call this helper path. Then we're going to call this one. Let's call this user. So we're going to create some automation variables on our Azure account. I haven't actually created the Azure account at the moment, so we're actually going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to just .source that bad boy in by doing that. Actually, no, sorry, doing that. So we're going to .source it in by just doing a get child item, literal path file, file, and then we're just going to do a for each object. I was about to do a percentage, but I just stopped myself. And then we're just going to .source that in like so. So that'll .source each of the scripts that were identified. There should only be PS1 files in there, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. Oh, use script user path. No, that's I was going to call it helper path. So we're going to do that. We've got our goodness. So now we've got a script user path. We're going to test it, make sure it exists. Yeah, it's declared, but it's never used. Actually, technically, now it is. So now that's done, we can basically start thinking about structuring our code. So I'm just going to keep the hybrid runbook worker roles like that. And the runbooks there, that's fine. And our site will go underneath here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to jump on my tenant. Just jump on my tenant. Just got to clean it up. That's fun. Just push that across. Alrighty. So I got my tenant here. Got my my tenant. So now we're going to create some resources. So we're going to create an Azure runbook. We're going to add Azure Automation, and we're going to create an LMS instance. So automation. It's one of these things. Every time I have to install a runbook worker, I have to basically go read the documentation, and I've only done it 30 days ago, and I still got to do it again. So it's going to create an automation instance, and we're just going to call this PowerShell logic app epic. Cats are the best. Nah, that's too much. I'll just call it PowerShell server. Something like that. It's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Just get rid of that. We're not in Japan. We can be in Southeast Australia. We need to create a run as account. Yeah, go ahead and do that. Resource group is BrizPug. Yeah, put it on my npm vs enterprise account. So while we're doing that, I'm going to start creating a we'll create a logic app as well while we're waiting. So if we go back to if we go to resource, where's my resource group? BrizPug. So create a resources. So as you can see there, it's created a whole bunch of different test runbooks. We're just gonna, by default, they're always there. LMS, a lot of analytics. We're gonna need this bad boy. I'm just gonna use the free, so just not gonna pay for anything. We're not sucking in a ton of data anyway. So user existing. I'm just gonna use BrizPug. We're just gonna create a new. We're just gonna call it. Just call it LMS PowerShell server. Australia Central, Southeast. Doesn't like underscores, that's fine. Price per gig, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and create that. Now we go back here. Wait for it to have a sync. Login analytics is the one that takes the longest, so we can actually just go to the resource here. Yeah, just go to that. That'll eventually provision anyway. So so I got a PowerShell server. Look at our goodness here. So I'm going to create a runbook. I'm just going to call it authentication. Going to have some PowerShell. So obviously, if you guys are not familiar with automation, you create your runbooks. Automation follows the principle of orchestrator. So if you basically used orchestrator back in the day, you had your runbook servers where basically you define your orchestration flow. Automation is pretty much just orchestrator upgraded. There's a ton of cool new features, so Orchestrator just doesn't do. But it's just something that if you're familiar with Orchestrator, you might it's a smaller step to automation. So obviously now we've got automation. I'm just going to go back to my code. I'm going to tell you now this is probably not going to run because there's probably a ton of bugs in here that I need to sort, but that's okay. So it's going to save our runbook. We're going to publish it. So it's always important to publish because basically you can save your runbook, but you obviously need to publish it to the actual the workspace. So now I'm going to go back to my automation account, and we're going to go and add some custom. Where are they? Again, it's always something. I'm going to create some custom variables, credentials. Where is it? I'm definitely having a man look. Oh, there it is. Perfect. I was definitely having a man look. Great story. My wife's like, Michael, you got to go get this out of the cupboard for me. And I'm like, well, mate, I can't find it. And it was like right there in front of me. Fun. Definitely didn't hear the end of that. So what I'm going to do is put the health path in there. So we're just going to make it C scripts / let's have a quick look at our structure here. We got PowerShell. Might as well just have a quick look at Revealing Explorer. I'm just going to do a shortcut here and just do this like that. That will do. Create that helper path. So we've got our helper path variable. Now we're going to create our user path variable. So that's going to be our demo user. So we might as well just reveal an Explorer. PowerShell demo. Whoops, it'll be probably that. It'll be oh yeah, I forgot that. So I'm going to be just C scripts. Just do that. What are we going to call this one? What was this one going to be called? What was it going to be called? User profile. So, yep. Encrypted, no. Now, this is really cool when you actually want to have a secure string. So if you want to have a password, realistically, you shouldn't even put a password. You should be using Azure app keys. Well, not app keys, yeah. In I can't remember what you call it. The Azure Vault. So you should be putting your passwords in there and using app keys. But even then, you could use your app key as a secure string and then go fetch it. So, but yeah. So obviously, user profile. We create that. I'm just going to fix this up because that's not correct. So what I'm doing now is just obviously I've got my hard-coded path like so. I think we've got that done. Oh, I need to put an actual user account, so I'll just do this. Oh, no, I've got to put a JSON file dot there, so like so. Alrighty, so we've got our automation in place. Now we need to build the logic apps to facilitate that. That's pretty easy, so yeah. Once this decides to finish, that'll be great. Let's hope that doesn't take too long, but knowing my luck, it's probably going to take forever. I'll just close it down. All right. So logic apps. That's what we need to do now. So if we go back to our resources, back to BrucePog, we've got our items there. Now we're just going to create a logic app. So if we go to logic app. So if you guys are not familiar with what a logic app is, it's basically, if you guys have used Microsoft Flow, it's just a nice GUI interface which allows you to basically do various functions. I would write this in functions, but I just don't have time and I don't have a full understanding of how to get that to work at the moment. But Azure Functions would be definitely the better way to do this, especially when you're doing any sort of event-driven development. This is technically would be event somewhat event-driven development. We're talking to an API endpoint. So yep, go ahead and Azure Logic app. Let's just call this create. We're just going to call it authenticate, like so. We're just going to use the existing, which is going to be BrisPug. Australia Southeast. I'm not going to need logging analytics. I don't particularly want to spend any extra money than I have to. For this, obviously, it's just a demo that's going to be used for like 2 seconds. So we can go back to our BrisPug resource group, check up on our OMS instance, so we can see that's there now. And we are actually quite happy. So the next thing I need to do is I need to actually provision a machine. So I'm just going to open up Hyper-V, and we're going to build a VM really quickly. So everyone's got their own flavor of VMs. So I'm just going to shut down some VMs and then quickly. So wait for them to shut down. So client Hyper-V. I'm just going to create. I've got my parent. So generally when I'm labbing, I've just obviously got a 2016 parent that I've got set up. So I'm just going to call this Azure Demo. We'll just call it BrisPug Demo. Let's put it in there, that's fine. Let's go Gen 2. Let's just give it for 4 gig. The reason why I have 64 gig of memory is the fact that we're going to attach a virtual disk later because we're going to use a differencing disk. The reason why I have 64 gig of memory is because Microsoft Identity Manager by default basically can, when I'm running build tests, consumes about 8 gigs. So when I need to actually spin up a full environment, it can sit up to about with SQL Server, it can sit up on about 22, 25 gig. I work from home, so I have a VM right there, which is basically used for my work. So I can just fire that up and just start work. Yeah, and obviously that uses 16 gig of memory, so I was running out of memory and I was kind of needed a lab. So yeah, so obviously got our thing. We're going to add some more cores to it as well. So just go there, 496, we're just going to add 4 cores because it'll make things run nice and snappy. This is all on SSD, so we should have a really snappy result. So it's going to go differencing, go virtual disk, going to specify the name and location. Okay, we'll just go BrisPug Demo and just chuck it in there. Just call it BrisPug Demo. If you guys use VMware Workstation, I'd highly recommend you guys check out Client Hyper-V because obviously you have all the goodness. So within PowerShell, you can create VMs via PowerShell and Client Hyper-V. In this instance, I'm not because I just can't be bothered. So got our differencing disk. Let's quickly inspect it, make sure I'm right. Yep, parent disk is that. Now, next thing I'm going to do is turn on guest services, so I can actually edit inside the VM. I'm going to turn off or shut down because that pisses me off. Automatically start the machine. Just give it 60 seconds. And checkpoints. So I'm just going to turn off automatic checkpoints. So it'll still do checkpoints, but it's not going to do a checkpoint for each time it starts. So if we fire up our VM, so once that fires up, we'll see how we go. So, keyboards, cherry blue, cherry red, cherry black, cherry brown. What do you guys have? Alright, let's go and do this. Don't need a product key. Put a password in there. Super complicated, but that's still alright. So now we've got our VM. So this is server 2016. So first thing we need to do is turn off enhanced security configuration, because if we don't, life is going to get tough really quickly, especially when we're trying to enroll the runbook worker, create a hybrid runbook worker. So what we need to do is we're also going to need to install the Rms Agent. So what we can do here is turn them off like so. We're going to install Rms on this bad boy. So let's jump back onto the portal. Not that. That's not the portal. This is the portal. Let's go to advanced settings. Wait. Why is it not coming up? Unless it's under properties. There's my subscriptions. Don't worry, you guys can take screenshots of this and you guys can go to your heart's content, and then I'm going to destroy it at the end of this. So well, I'm absolutely adamant that it's under advanced settings, but I can't see the. It's got to be. Yeah, it is. It's just that. Oh wait, I think it's under logs. I'm used to the old OMS interface. That's why. No, it's not. It's under advanced settings. Where is it? So I'm trying to find the Rms Agent installer. If you guys know where it is, let me know. I'm pretty sure it's under advanced settings, but I might be wrong. I'm going to quickly go and check Microsoft's TechNet. I know where I can find it. Unbroke one but workers. It's always the fun part right here. Yep. Okay, this is the code that I need to actually run to, yeah, but I need to find where the worker. Okay, I need to get that from the gallery. That's something I also need to do. Okay, where is it? Because yeah, I'm pretty sure it's under advanced because you can actually add your wait, connect to a data source. Yeah, I thought it was. It's just not coming up. Oh, this is the best. This is always the best. All right. What I might do is I have to jump off. I've got to go in 10 minutes. So what we might do is we might make this a part series. So I might just pick it up maybe either it might be Saturday or maybe tomorrow. And we'll hopefully have that working. Yeah, that's a pain because black screen, which is not really ideal. I need to install that worker. So what I'm doing in this instance, I'm installing an LMS worker, which an LMS agent, and the agent's basically one of its primary purpose is for it to basically collect logs, ingest logs. But one of its other purposes is basically able to execute runbooks. So we're going to be trying to do that, but that's not working. So I think I'm just going to leave it here today because it's just not playing ball. But if you guys, I'm going to be committing this up on GitHub. It'll be on my GitHub anyway. So I think, I think we'll just leave it at that for the time being. I've pretty much got the base of the code there, so you can see. I've got a bit of a param block. I'm not going to add any synopsis or anything like that. So you can comment with your synopsis and things like that up the top there with your and add parameters, the descriptions and examples and things like that. But just obviously for testing, this is just not needed. So I've done that. Obviously, so dot source it in. Yep, that's fine. Test the path, make sure it exists. Fix my English. Return the caller, that's fine. Load the user profile, convert from JSON, that's fine. Test the object's properties. I don't think that's going to work. I can test it right now, actually. Let's just quickly test it. So one of the things, if you're never sure, I generally just jump in the ISE, grab whatever I'm dealing with. So like so I'm just going to do that. I'm going to create a quick class, test. We're just going to create a property. It's an object, isn't it? Yeah, let's just call it object. Okay, so let's just go object. Go to my favorite process. I need one. So I'm just doing a get member. I could just do select. So I'm just looking for the type. System.diagnostics.process. Object. Let's just build a default constructor. And then we'll just go this dot object is equal to get process. Select object, first one. Let's just quickly test that. Test new, so create a new object, check object. It should just have an sub-object. As you can see, object within an object. So now I can test. Let's look for a property within, actually let's just test the object. So let's just run test property. Does that exist? Test object property. So we can call the object object, and then let's call the property object because I didn't name it properly. It should be property. Let's just call it, no, let's just do that. So the sub object is an object, but it's a property. Look at that. Sweet. Good. It's going to work. So we know that that's going to evaluate to be true. So any kind of situations like that, I generally just go, wait, stop, jump in a console, bash it out, work out what's going on there. So that's fine. So that'll evaluate. We can actually mess around with this too. So we can actually play around with the user object. We can see these actually fail out, which will be really cool. Validating the username, so that's fine. User object username, get the Google Authenticator pin, so that's basically going to be functions.sourced in from here. And then we're going to validate the password with not equals, case sensitive not equals, and then return error count. So, and then if it's all good, we're just going to dump the object. We're not going to do anything fancy there. So let's leave it there. Thanks guys for joining us. And I hope to see you guys in the future. All right, bye for now.